It's happening in gaming in Las Vegas. Anthony is all over it and knows about it, so we could not have any type of discussion of gaming in Las Vegas without asking Anthony. Anthony, thank you very much for agreeing. I'm going to step over here. You'll notice that our theme tonight is black and white. Over here we have the legitimate members of the panel in white. As we step over here, excuse me while I turn my tape recorder on. I wouldn't want to lose any of this, particularly when I'm talking. Over here on the black table are our nefarious advantage players. First on my left here is Dee. I think that's Dee. He's in one of his incarnations tonight. Dee's a long-time poster. I'm sure if you've not met Dee, you've heard of him on BJ21. Many people consider him, and I'm one of them, probably the premier poster on BJ21. When Dee posts, that's that third glass of Chardonnay. When Dee posts, everybody listens. As I was telling my wife earlier, that Dee will put a post up on any of the pages on BJ21, and within a minute or two, there'll be 100 hits. So, unlike most of us, Dee's daytime job is playing blackjack. If you have a chance to talk to him, it's a good way to spend your time tonight. Thank you, Dee, and we'll be hearing from you later. MathProf here, math, as his name suggests, mathematics professor. Is that correct?
I think so.
I'm not sure of the significance of that, but I'm sure that MathProf.
Well, I want to show the video to Sister Faye, the president, get brownie points. You see, I mean.
MathProf thought that was important. He wanted me to include that. Anyway, in addition to being the subject of casino abuse, I've forgotten the casino. What is it? Mandalay? MathProf is, dare I say, the premier mathematics professor on BJ21. What do you think? Is that fair? Is that fair, Dee?
Yes, more than fair.
Fair. That's the first words he said tonight.
Understatement.
Understatement. For those of you that are not familiar with the various boards on BJ21, in addition to miscellaneous and how are you, etc., there's theory pages, and anytime any type of mathematics question comes up, those that think they know what they're talking about always wait for MathProf to weigh in, because there's nothing worse than saying, yes, 2 and 2 is 4, and the next day you will see MathProf will say, well, it depends. And since we all have the ability to delete our own posts, you will see that original poster deleting his post after he has seen that MathProf weighs in. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. On the end here is Harry B. Harry B is, as is MathProf, not a full-time, am I right? Full-time, he's not a professional gambler, but a serious recreational gambler. Chief of psychiatry at I'm not going to say which hospital, major Baltimore hospital, on medical staff you're a professor at which medical school, Harry?
One of the universities.
One of the universities. It has something to do with counting cards and not wanting the world to know about it. Harry has brought along some tape with us tonight to show, I think it's the Frontier? Some hospitality offered to Harry a couple of years ago. By the way, all of the gentlemen on my left, your right, are represented and have litigation in progress by the gentleman over here, Bob or Robert Nersesian. Bob, I didn't know that you went by such a formal name.
I don't. It's Bob, please.
It's Bob. Bob has, I don't know, I think it's probably fair to say that he's becoming the go-to guy as far as litigation, card counting advantage play litigation in Las Vegas, local Las Vegas attorney. He's got some tape with him tonight. He's going to tell you some horror stories, what's legal, what's not legal. If you get in trouble, if a casino treats you like they may have treated some of these people down here, the people in black down here, Bob is a good guy to see. Our final panelist here is Stanford Wong. You know how people say our next speaker or panelist needs no introduction? Well, I'm not going to do that and then give him an introduction. Stanford needs no introduction. For those of you, perhaps the spouses that are not aware, Stanford is the proprietor of BJ21. He started this whole concept of card counters getting together for parties. He's acting as our moderator tonight, and without further ado, Stanford, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, I am moderator tonight because I asked ad hoc if I could be moderator. I wanted to have the best seat in the house here, but I'm not really going to say very much because these gentlemen here with me, their words are much more valuable than mine for the topic tonight. My main function is going to be keeping the thing moving so the food doesn't get too cold before we get to it. Anyway, we'll start out tonight with Anthony Curtis, who I don't have to introduce because Ad Hoc already did. Kurt's been a good friend of mine for decades now, and I will let him take over.
Thank you. Should I take this, or how do you want to do this? Sorry, Bob.
No problem.
Is it better okay if I sit, or do you want me to stand? Is this all right? It's fine like this? All right, if you can't hear me, say so. I guess we've got no amplification here. Just by way of explanation of what I'm doing here, Al Rogers called me about 2 months ago, and he said, we're going to have this shindig here, and we're going to have a panel, and we're going to hear about what's going on with card counters getting beat up. And I says, that's cool, Al, I want to see that. And he said, well, right, and we'd like you to be on the panel. And I said, well, I haven't really played for about a decade or so, Al, and this sounds really good. I want to be there. I'm going to watch. He said, we'd like you to be on the panel. And I said, well, he said, Stanford would really like you to be on the panel. I was like, I'll be on the panel. So, like I said, I actually haven't played in quite a while. But I might have a little bit of perspective to add to this, especially as we get going. I'll try to keep my comments brief at the top and wait and see. I'm sort of looking forward to hearing what the new breed's got to say. I played with a bunch of the guys in the old days, and I'll tell you a little bit about it before I'm done here, that had problems in the back room. Back then it was a little more dangerous. Trust me. People said, what do you consider your best quality as a blackjack player, card counter? And I used to say, well, I was a sprinter in college. And it's the truth. That's what I did. I'd turn around and I'd get out. I never wanted to be back there. I was mortified to get taken to the back because of what I'd heard firsthand that had happened to people. I think there's been some changes. I'll try to touch on that. Al asked me to comment on, first of all, just on the trend in table game profits. And I can see the connection here. I mean, what's going on with in the casinos? Do they see you guys, us, them, whoever, as a threat to them, to their bottom line? The trend, I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, it's very hard to tell these days. I look at all the data and I try to make sense of it, but it's kind of hard because these different places, it's a different situation in every joint. If you're talking about a place like the Fiesta or the Stations, then it's all slots, and they'll tell you the table games hardly matter to them, and it's true. The Palms, they don't make that much money off their table games compared to their slots. Well, you wouldn't know it by the way they sweat there at the Palms, but it's the truth. I mean, what's important to the industry now is really, it seems to be table games. Place like Bellagio, Mirage, MGM Grand is a different story.
You mean slots is important?
I'm sorry, excuse me. Slots are more important, yes. It's a different story at Bellagio, Mirage, MGM Grand. I said something once, most of you have talked to me, I've been on TV, and I said something on TV that slots were far more important to the casinos, and Steve Wynn called and said, that's not true. Table games are the most important thing to me. And I says, well, that's you. It's different at Bellagio, it's different at Mirage. For most of the places, they're kind of going in a different direction. But that doesn't mean that they don't care. And interestingly, I saw on some recent reports of the state win that it looks like Blackjack's actually starting to make more money and have greater gains than it has in earlier years. What's that attributable to? I'm not sure. I don't think it's because they're backing more people off. I think it's just that more people are coming and playing the games. And we all know what those games are turning into. The super fun 21s, the 6-5 blackjacks, the even money blackjacks. I mean, I imagine you've seen this game over at the Rio, where they're literally, I mean, there's no compensating rules. It's just regular blackjack paying even money. And I think what's going on is, yeah, it's absurd, but I mean, people are playing these games. And there's not much we can do. BJ21 and Al Rogers and Stanford Wong, they've gone on their crusades to say, let's get this stuff out, you know, let's change these games and let's let the casinos know we're not going to stand for it. But the problem is a lot of people are standing for it. They hear that blackjack is fun. They see somebody demonstrate card counting on TV, you know, guilty, and they go, wow, I guess I can go do that. And they haven't a clue what they're doing. And they're playing these games, and the casinos are looking at one another and saying, my God, they're all playing it. Let's keep feeding it to them. If they're going to eat it, we're going to feed it to them. So I think that this is something that's going on in terms of trends of table games. I think it's getting worse out there in terms of what they're dealing. They're making more money, and that's only because there are more and more people showing up. All right, so what about the increasing abuse of players? What I think is going on in this regard is that we're seeing what seems like more abuse. And it's just that there's more players. There's more of you. There's more good players out there. So more of these incidents can happen. I mean, back when I came to town, I came here when I turned 21. As soon as I turned 21, I dropped out of school and I came here, and it was 1979. And back in those days, everybody knew everybody. I mean, it didn't take me long to know who the players were. And we formed our little groups and our information, what we called the information conduit. You find something, you tell the other guy. He finds something, there's a quid pro quo, you get it back. These days, it's unbelievable. I mean, I come to these parties and I see people that I've never seen before. And I talk to people every day that I've never heard of, and they tell me that they're doing things that I've never heard of before. And I think that there are just more and more and more of you and of us these days. And that has a lot to do with more incidences. Now, there's sort of I think there's kind of a corollary to this too, is that as there are more of us, these groups you are getting more aggressive. You're teaming up. You're learning about sharing risk. You're learning about, what a team bankroll can do. And I think that's what's intimidating the casinos more than anything else, is this idea of the team. They're really nervous, scared, angered, agitated by the thought that it's not just one guy, that it's a group of people coming in and doing this to them. I think pushing that further too is that some of the groups today are a little more arrogant. They figure that we're just going to go in, we're going to get the money. We're going to get the money, we're going to hit them hard, and we'll see what they do, we'll see how they react, and we'll go someplace else. There's more places to play. I hate to sound like my grandpa when he was talking to me about the Green Bay Packers, back when Lombardi was here, that kind of thing. But it's true. Back when we played, when I came to town, we were teaming up then too, but we sure didn't like people to know about it. And I think that we were a little more diplomatic. We didn't try to stick it down the casino's throat as much as I see it happening here. That would be my one bit of advice. I just think I see the younger group coming in, the younger breed, and they're quite arrogant. And because I have an ability to talk to the casinos now, and they tell me what's wrong, I ask them, why do you treat people this way? Why do you do it? They say because they invite it from us. They ask for it. They don't have a style. They don't smooth it over. They're not gentlemen. And I see a lot of that. That said, I would also say that these days I don't think it's any more, I think it's much less dangerous. I think that the ramifications of being backroomed, taken aside, backed off, whatever, are not like they were back then. We're hearing about some terrible things. I think it's more about intimidation these days. I don't think I'd be as afraid to be taken in the back these days as I was back then. All the way back to the Alan Brown, Barry Finn situation at the Horseshoe. I think that kind of marked the end of those kind of days where people were going in the back and getting spleens busted and things of that nature. I know some bad things have happened. I've heard some of the stories, and I mean some of the incarceration and the strip search and so forth. But I still think that it's less about physical pain and hurt as it is about intimidation. One last thing I would say going in that's better is, I mean, that you got a guy like this over here. In our days, there wasn't much. There were a couple of guys. There was a guy named Les Combs who did it. That we could he was kind of our go-to guy. But Les, you know, he really didn't want to get involved with it that much. Believe it or not, there was a guy, the guys who know of, a guy named Andy Blumen. Do you know Andy?
No, I don't.
Andy Blumen, who's like very well known as being in the whole Bob Stupak group. He hangs around with Stupak, and he was part of the Stratosphere and all that. But Andy did a little bit of defending of the players. But you didn't really have somebody that you could talk to. And I think what Bob's doing is represents a big change from the way it was 15 and 20 years ago. But so there's my state of the state. I'm really here to hear the others guys and see what they've got to say, and then maybe I'll have a comment a little bit later.
Well, I know you have questions, but we also have 4 other people to hear from, so why don't you try to remember your questions and hold them till the end, and next we'll move to the black